Good evening, everyone. We're so happy to be with you at this time for our weekly mental health platform, and we thank God for it. I hope you're doing well this evening. I hope that everything's going good in spite of the many challenges. Let us pray. Father God, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for blessing us and keeping us. Thank you for this day, for this is a day that you have made, and we'll rejoice and be glad in it. And we thank you, dear Lord. Thank you for our speaker, Allison, dear Lord, as we bring forth this mental health platform, all for your glory and for our benefit. In your name we pray. Amen. We
Amen.
thank God for that. And Pastor Jay?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight at Simple Balanced Life as we are getting ready to get an awesome session on tonight from Allison. But I'm going to give you a couple of scriptures tonight before we get started, one of which is coming out of Proverbs, and I'm reading from King James Version, 20th chapter, the first verse. It says, "Wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise." And then Proverbs 4 and 5 says, "Get wisdom, get understanding, forget it not, neither decline from the words of my mouth." Those two verses tonight, I hope will help us as we dive into our session on tonight out of King James Versions for Proverbs. Thank you.
Okay. And again, we thank God for Allison on tonight. And she's going to talk about trending drugs among the adolescents or with the adolescent. And as Pastor Jay and I were talking recently, we realized drugs can hit anyone, any age bracket, crosses social, economic, racial lines. It crosses all of that because it's a pandemic, not only here in the United States, but generally speaking, around the world. So we thank God for Allison bringing this information. So without further ado, Allison, it's in your hands.
All right. Can you see my presentation?
No, not at this time. Let's see.
All right. Let's see. All right. Share.
Hey,
Oh, wait. Let me see. Okay. Share entire screen. Okay.
and if any reason we can't get it up,
Well, we're going to try one more time.
Yeah, just go ahead on.
Select. Okay. What do you see me?
Okay, hold on right there.
Add to the screen.
There you go.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. Phew. There we go. Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulties, everyone. My name is Allison Butler, and I work for Chesterfield County Mental Health and Support Services, particularly in the prevention department. And I've been working in the field of prevention for over 25 years. And throughout that time, we've seen many trends come and go in terms of substance use among teens or in adolescents. And tonight, we're going to go over some of the ones that we're currently seeing, the most popular trends that are out there. I guess if you have any questions, just let me know. And I guess the Reverend will filter those out as we go. And we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, the first one. Alcohol is still the most widely abused substance among teens. We hear a lot about other substances out there, but alcohol is still the most widely abused. It's probably because it's the most readily available. You can get alcohol almost in any store, convenience store, gas station, grocery store. A lot of people have it in their homes, so it's easily accessible. A lot of kids have older siblings or friends, and they're more likely to try it if they're around it. 90% of alcohol consumed by youth is in the form of binge drinking. And when we talk about binge drinking, it's 4 or more drinks in an hour or less for girls and 5 or more drinks in an hour or less for boys. So the idea is to get impaired quickly in a short period of time. Okay. Every year, more than 4,000 alcohol-related deaths happen in individuals under the age of 21. And those are most from car accidents, homicides, alcohol poisoning, and suicides. Consequences of underage drinking. Youth who drink alcohol are more likely to experience school problems, physical problems, unwanted, unplanned, and unprotected sex, physical and sexual assault, unintended injuries such as burns, falling, and drowning, memory problems, and abuse of other drugs. And the changes in the brain development may have lifelong effects when we start drinking at an early age. And they said that adolescents who start drinking before the age of 15 are actually 4 times more likely to become alcohol dependent in their lifetime. And as a statistic, if you wait until 21 to drink, then you have a 9% risk of developing alcohol dependence in their lifetime. So 4 times the amount, that goes up to 36% for kids who are 15 or younger who start using alcohol. Cannabis is the second most widely abused substance. We've actually seen a trend. Drug trends are actually trending down in all categories, but we have seen an increase in use in cannabis recently. I think it has to do with the current marijuana laws, and the perception of harm has gone way down. So youth don't think of it as a big deal because they're seeing it legalized in a lot of areas. It's been legalized in Virginia for those over 21. We'll talk about that later. And it's going to be, I think, approved recreationally starting July 1st. So it's going to look a little different than it has been in Virginia. There was increased potency to cannabis. Back in the 1960s, the THC, which is the psychoactive compound in cannabis which causes the impairment, was about 1 to 3%. Today, in the past 30 years, marijuana has tripled in potency, and it has grown 5 times stronger. The average potency is about 15% of THC compared to the 1 to 3%, with some dispensaries selling products with a potency of 20 to 30%. And some of the waxes, dabs, and oils can be as high as 80%. So we've seen a huge increase in THC, which really changes the components of smoking cannabis. 1 in 6 teens we see statistics show can become addicted to cannabis, compared to 1 in 9 adults who try cannabis, because the adolescent brain is especially susceptible to cannabis use. Teens' brains aren't fully developed until probably between the ages of 21 and 25. Boys take a little longer than girls. So they have their brains are still developing, so they're more susceptible to addiction to any kind of substance, especially cannabis. Cannabis use directly affects the parts of the brain responsible for memory, learning, attention, and it can last up to 28 days after abstinence from the drug. And the interesting thing about marijuana is stored in our fat cells, so it stays in our system longer. Okay, so alcohol is water-based, so if we drink, it typically leaves our body within 24 to 48 hours. Cannabis stays in our fat cells. So if someone smokes 1 joint, then it potentially can stay in our system for up to 7 days. So if somebody is smoking marijuana every weekend, technically that THC will continuously be in the system. So it doesn't we're not giving it enough time to leave the system, so it builds up and it can show up in blood tests, urine tests, and things like that. Okay. We see a couple different patterns to cannabis use. The first one is called greening out, and which means that smoking a lot of THC at one time. And this can cause symptoms like agitation, nausea, psychotic symptoms, hearing voices, and feeling suicidal. Because the THC content is so high, it causes different symptoms than it did back in the day. And then the cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome is from chronic use of THC. And then we see people who don't feel well, they vomit or having severe abdominal pains, or they can get other health health effects from it. Anytime somebody smokes something and inhales it, it gets into their lungs just like a traditional cigarette. So it can affect lungs and other parts of the body. So people say, oh, it's not as harmful as, other drugs. It's all natural. Well, we are seeing a lot of reported side effects of this really high potency THC. And they also say that women who smoke marijuana, it can cross the placental barrier when a woman is pregnant. So it can affect the fetus as well, the unborn child. So we always promote, we always talk about healthy pregnancies when we work with our older clients as well. Now, I don't know if anybody's heard about these. These are our synthetic cannabinoids, and this is the stuff that we see in gas stations, little convenience shops. These are spice and K2 lab-made substances that are chemically similar to chemicals found in the cannabis plant, but they often produce very different effects, okay? They're sold at markets under the guise of herbal incense or potpourri. And titles include Red Dawn, Paradise, Demon, Black Magic, Spike, Smoke, Skunk, a variety of different names. It says caution for fragrance purposes only, not for consumption. Keep out of the reach of children and pets. But they put that on there to avoid criminal prosecution. But when kids go into the gas station, they know to look for this stuff. It's very packaged towards young people with like the superhero or the graphic designs on it. It can be associated with severe health problems and can be life-threatening because it's all synthetically sprayed. It's not real cannabis. And they can also typically add to liquid cartridges used in vaping devices or added to dry shredded plant material and it's smoked. I had a mom tell me one time that her child tried this spice one time, and she said it gave him a psychotic break. And she said we ended up having to take him to the hospital, and he was admitted to the mental unit on the hospital. And she said he was never the same. And she said he only used it one time. So this stuff can be very dangerous. We don't really know what's in it, and it can cause life-threatening health effects. But you can't find this anywhere. You can find this anywhere too, unfortunately. We also see this around the Commonwealth. You can get this online. You can get these on these convenience stores. It looks like your average snack foods like Doritos or Sour Patch Kids or Funyuns. But if you look in the corner, you can see the little marijuana leaf on the symbol on the packages of these items. So they're all laced with THC in them. And as parents, we might not think anything of it, right? Because our child has this in their backpack, or you see Doritos or the trolley sour gummies. My daughter, she loves sour gummies, and I always tell her at school because kids will bring stuff on the bus, and they'll say, "Hey, do you want to try this, or you want some gummies?" I said, I always tell her to please, if say no. And I said, if you don't feel comfortable saying no, I always tell her to just bring it home so I can look at it, because sometimes kids don't even know what could be at home. So they might have gotten this from a parent's closet or a older sibling or family member's closet, right? And they just think of it as candy. So And the thing about edibles, it could take up to 30 minutes to 90 minutes to feel the effects of THC. So sometimes kids, if they know they're eating an edible, they might not think they have any kind of effect from it because they didn't wait long enough. So they'll end up eating way more than what is recommended, and then they can suffer some severe health consequences. And that's when we see the psychotic episodes, or they're hallucinating, and not, or throwing up and not feeling well. So we've had parents call the poison control center. We've had them take them to the emergency room, and it's because they ate too many of the edibles at one time. New laws are changing the way these are packaged and sold, but they only have about like 8 enforcement agents in all of Virginia assigned with enforcing these laws. So the convenience stores and all these shops know this, so that's why they have them out. They know that they're not going to get prosecuted very often because they just don't have the manpower to enforce a lot of these laws. This is the current law in Virginia for those over 21 years of age. Adults 21 years of older may possess an ounce or less of cannabis, and about an ounce can roll about 40 joints. I didn't realize it was that many, but it can fill a standard plastic sandwich bag and be enough for about 40 cigarette-sized joints. Adults are allowed to grow up to 4 marijuana plants in their household currently, with specific rules, like you're not supposed to be able to see it from the street. And then there's medical marijuana currently with specific rules. Patients must be diagnosed with an approved medical condition. They have a written recommendation from a licensed Virginia physician, and they must purchase marijuana products from one of the 21 licensed dispensaries in Virginia. I believe there's 2 in the Richmond area. And then currently purchasing recreational marijuana is still considered illegal, but I think that is changing July 1st. So recreational marijuana is becoming legalized, I think, starting in July. The possession of the marijuana concentrates, waxes, and dabs and oils are still going to be illegal. And then using marijuana in a public or moving vehicle is illegal. And Chesterfield County has actually hired some drug recognition experts because I don't know if you noticed that if you're driving down the road, you can smell marijuana pretty frequently, or if you're in a store, or so people seem to be using and driving, but the drug recognition experts now can pull somebody over for smoking and driving, and they can get a DUI with driving impaired under the influence of marijuana now. So even though it is legal, there's still things about it that are not legal. And even if we are over 21, we always say to check with your employer, because I know for Chesterfield County, unless we have a medical card with a specific rule, if they drug test us and we come up positive for THC, we can face disciplinary action. So I always tell people to check with their employers if they're over 21. And, if we're over 21 and we are using, it's a good conversation to have with our kids about why it's still not safe for young people to use, even though, adults 21 years of older can legally use. So we're going to talk about a little bit more about having those conversations with our kids as well. E-cigarettes are huge right now in the Commonwealth. If you go outside, you could probably on every corner block, you'll see a vape shop or a convenience store that sells e-cigarettes. And kids don't think that they are as harmful as regular cigarettes. In the tobacco industry or the e-cigarette industry lets kids believe that they package them in fun colors and flavors, and they make them very appealing to young kids. There are several shops around the area that will sell to somebody under the age of 21. They don't card, and adolescents will tell you they know the exact shops where to go to pick up some of these vaping products. But a vape, one pack of cigarettes it has about 8 milligrams per nicotine per cigarette, but they only inhale about 1 milligram because of the filters that are in cigarettes. Okay, one Juul pod, that's a type of e-cigarette out there, contains 5% of nicotine by volume, which is equivalent to a whole pack of cigarettes all at one time. One fixed pod has about the same amount of nicotine as 2 packs of cigarettes, and one Surin pod has about the same amount of nicotine as in 3 packs of cigarettes. Um, and so that much nicotine in a very short amount of time can actually cause nicotine toxicity or nicotine poisoning, because some of these vapes hold as much as 20,000 hits in one of these vapes. So there's no regulation, about uh, what's in them. Sometimes, depending on where they're sold, the nicotine is a lot higher than what it's listed on the package. Um, One myth is that e-cigarettes are healthier because it gives off harmless flavored water vapor. However, water is not an ingredient in the e-liquid pods. Instead, they're made up of propylene glycol, vegetable glycerin, flavorings, and nicotine. And I was in a conference with a lady who tests e-cigarette pods, and she says that when the liquid is superheated through the vape device, she says it doesn't actually become air, it becomes a water vapor. And what's happening is that water vapor is getting inhaled and going deep inside the lungs. Okay, it's like almost drowning almost in the water vapor, because it only takes about a teaspoon of water for in your lungs to drown. And what's happening is the water is getting deep inside the lung tissue, and it's causing lung damage in young people. And we've there was a mom saying her teenage daughter, she didn't even realize she was smoking e-cigarette. She was 14. But by the time she was 16 years old, she said she was having panic attacks because she was having a hard time breathing. And she goes, I didn't even know she was smoking e-cigarettes until I took her to the hospital because she couldn't breathe. And she admitted that she had been smoking e-cigarettes for about 2 years. And she goes, and the doctor told her she had permanent lung damage from smoking the e-cigarettes, and she has to be on oxygen all the time now. And then once the damage is done, unfortunately, it cannot be reversed. And the scary thing about e-cigarettes, that any kind of substance, any kind of drug out there could be made into a liquid and put into one of these cartridges. So there, it might not even be nicotine in there. We've had kids, have THC. We've had vapes been tested for opioids. We have vapes been tested for methamphetamines. All those substances can go inside one of these cartridges. And they also have vaping video games and smart devices that can call and are being sold in vape shops. So, like I said, they're really heavily marketing it to kids. The schools have said that they've gotten kids as young as 5th grade being caught with e-cigarette devices at school. So it can be very harmful. Like I said, it's a lot of nicotine, a lot of added chemicals, and the potential for lung damage is pretty high as well. So they did analysis of the vaping products confiscated from Central Virginia, and 82% of the confiscated samples tested positive for nicotine. Others tested for THC, 18%, and the other ones were methamphetamines, nicotine, and other synthetic cannabinoids, which is like the spice and the K2 stuff. So there are a lot of other things being added to the vaping devices that make them very dangerous. Prescription medication. I do a lot of talk about prescription opioids. When there was that huge epidemic, probably about 10, 15 years ago, and then from the overprescribing of prescription medications, and then how it switched from that to the heroin epidemic. And now we're seeing the rise of fentanyl overdoses. Kids will tell us they'll go to parties and everybody will bring a prescription pill bottle with them, and they'll put it in a bowl, and then they'll use alcohol, and they'll grab a bunch of pills and they'll swallow the pills with alcohol. I know, which is very dangerous. And I said, like, I don't know, I talk to children or adolescents. It's like, you don't know what you're taking. I said, it could be your grandma's, pain medicine, or it could be, something for joints, or you don't know. I said, and then mixing it with alcohol can even make things worse, and you know, um, and cause death. So they're telling us that they're seeing that at parties. Um, the rise of fentanyl is pretty scary because it's 50 times stronger than heroin, and it's easier to manufacture than heroin is, and they put it inside all these fake pills that are out there on the street currently. We see xylazine. It's a non-opioid sedative. It's used in muscle relaxants in veterinarian medicine, and they're mixing that in with some of these pills that we see. It's what they call the zombie drug because it causes open sores on our skin. Um, Tianeptine or kratom is the gas station heroin and synthetic opioids. We've seen a lot of that. They're sold in pills or gummy form. They can be just as addicting and harmful depending on how much a person uses. We're seeing those all over gas stations and convenience stores, and they market it to kids as well. The fake pills is what we're really seeing in adolescents. It's number one reason for overdose right now in adolescents 16 to 25. They think they're getting an authentic pill. Let's say they have a friend who says, "Hey, I have a Percocet, or I have an Adderall, or I have a Ritalin or a Xanax that I can sell you," and it's all fake pressed fentanyl. Anything that kids are getting off the street or off the internet is all fake. Almost 80% of all the fake pills out there contain fentanyl. And if a young person isn't used to the effects of fentanyl, just taking one of those pills can cause an overdose death. If you see on the screen, some of these, you can't even tell the difference between an authentic Adderall and a fake Adderall. These drug dealers have these pill presses that make it look like the exact same thing. And that's really scary because kids don't know the difference. So they're taking these medications thinking they're the real medications, but they're not. And that's what's causing the major increase in overdoses. My sister said that her son was a senior in high school 2 years ago, and one of his friends on the football team bought a pill from somebody who he thought was a Percocet, and it ended up being one of these fake pills pressed with fentanyl. And she said that he took it before he went to bed, and she said, "I went to get him up for school the next day," and she goes, and he was deceased. He passed away in his bed for just taking one of those pills. So that's another reason why having these conversations with our kids about who getting not taking things from friends or other people, and even for adults, getting prescriptions from a trusted doctor or pharmacy, because about 80% of the medications that we can get online are also fake. So that's really scary as well. There's a website out there called www.safe.pharmacy before ordering anything online, and it will tell you whether this website is real or fake. Unless we're getting it from like an Amazon pharmacy or, like I said, CVS or Walmart online or something like that. A lot of times, we don't even know as adults that what we're getting is fake, and that's what's really scary. And these are the prescription and over-the-counter drugs of abuse that we're seeing most often with young people. We're seeing an increased use in Ritalin, Adderall, or Vyvanse abuse. Kids are getting there's kids with actual ADHD are getting their medication stolen, and kids are crushing it up and snorting it. Because if a child does not have ADHD, because it's a stimulant, but if you have ADHD, taking a stimulant actually calms down the brain. If a person does not have ADHD and takes a stimulant, then it actually speeds up. So it's like they're on a form of speed, and they like the feeling. Girls will use it to lose weight. It can be an appetite suppressant. So we see those drugs of abuse. Benzos that are used for anxiety are widely abused as well. Those are second to the narcotics, which are the oxycodone, the Vicodin, Percocet, and Demerol. I know doctors don't prescribe all these as much as they used to. I always talk with parents and I said, if your child goes in for wisdom teeth removal, or if they have surgery and they send them home, it's always a great conversation to have with our doctors about alternative pain medications. My niece got all like a 30-day supply of Percocets when she had her jaw surgery. Like, what 14-year-old needs a 30-day supply of Percocets? So just having those conversations, they don't do that as much anymore because they've really, the laws have really changed about how much and how often they can prescribe. But uh, I always say my mom, when I was young, she would always like, I barely get a Tylenol or an Advil. She'd be like, "Oh, rub some dirt in it, you'll be fine." So we didn't have access to a lot of the things that kids have access to now, which I think is really scary. Um, and that's why we, having these conversations because, pretty much somebody knows somebody who has something. The kids will tell you in school, they'll know somebody who sells something. So it's not the same as when we were growing up. I think when I was in high school, that was, alcohol and then marijuana was just becoming popular when I was in high school. We didn't have any of the stuff that kids are dealing with today. And then we also see over-the-counter substance use, which is the Robitussin, the cough syrup. That's why you see a lot of these things over the counter now when you go into the drugstores. It's very inconvenient. You have to go to the pharmacy or have to get stuff unlocked because kids are stealing it and they're using it to get high. They'll drink the whole bottle of Robitussin or take the Corseed cough drops and ingest the whole sleeve at once. And it's kind of like a hallucinogen effect, and that's why they consume the whole bottle. And I had a mom ask me once. She goes, "I found like 7 bottles of cough syrup under my child's bed." She says, "Is that normal?" I'm like, "Unless your child's been sick, having those empty bottles are probably not normal." Um, so just having those conversations, and if we have an underlying health condition or heart condition, taking a lot of that over-the-counter medication can cause severe health consequences as well. And some of the OTC, they'll make a combination of prescription cough syrup containing codeine, soda, and sometimes hard candy like Jolly Ranchers and drink it to get high. Some slang terms are like lean, purple drink, scissor, dirty Sprite, etc. It's popularized in a lot of rap and hip hop music, a lot of music videos in general. They'll use that terminology, and that's just mixing these substances with soda to be able to drink it. Risk factors for youth. When we talk to kids who are using, at first they think that it won't harm them, right? They think they're invincible. That's part of being a kid. Like I said, our brains aren't fully developed until we're about 21 to 25. So they don't have the ability to think, well, if I do this now, then it's going to affect me in the future, or if, it's for fun. I know a lot of other kids who use it and nothing bad happens to them. So they don't see the long-term piece. And that's just because it's not the abstract thinking piece isn't quite quite developed yet. Another risk factor would be siblings and or close friends who use. If they have an older sibling or friend that can get it, they're more likely to use if their friends are using. Family history of substance abuse problems. If alcoholism or drug addiction runs in our families, we're at a higher biological risk ourselves to develop it if we use, just like with any other health problems that run in the family. We see a lot of kids right now suffering with anxiety and depression. I don't know, pretty much in a mental health crisis, I think, with young people. And so they will use substances to escape. They say that smoking marijuana or smoking cannabis reduces anxiety. In the short term, that may be true. They said long-term marijuana use can actually increase anxiety and depression. So if somebody's suffering from mental health and self-medicating with over-the-counter substances, it can make it worse. Or if a kid just starts smoking substances and are using it long-term or using it frequently, or depending on what they're using, it can cause mental health problems. They said long-term use of marijuana can cause a psychotic episode. And if there's like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder in the family, it can bring out one of those episodes in a young person if they use marijuana in their teens. So it can cause mental health problems as well. Life difficulties. Like I said, life is hard for some of these kids. They're struggling with connection. I think the pandemics, really started it, and it kind of shined a spotlight about some of the mental health problems that kids were facing, um, feeling disconnected. If they're having a hard time connecting with peers, with family, if they feel alone, if they're isolated, those are all risk factors. And then finding out that drugs can be fun in the short term, right? They say, well, why did you try it? Like, because it was fun. And it always seems fun in the beginning until consequences start showing up, and then it starts causing a lot of problems at home, at school. Um, Maybe if they want to go off to the military, it can affect their military record, police academy, all those things. Especially if they're getting in trouble with the law, and if they have a juvenile record. And even though juvenile records are sealed, people will come around and interview neighbors and family members about what type of teenager this person was, and so um, all those things can affect future ambitions. And as parents, what can we do? Pay attention to signs, warning red flags ahead, know the signs of use, heavy identification with drug culture, especially with the clothing. If they have a lot of marijuana paraphernalia or sayings, 420 is a big one. If they're listening to music that really identifies with the drug culture, talking about and posting about drug use, social media is huge. They're connecting with people they probably don't even know online, especially through some of these apps. So monitoring social media is huge. Because anything that's hooked up to the internet could potentially people could potentially engage with your child. Even the gaming systems um, are risky because people can join in on the chat groups and lines, and they can friend other kids and be posing as other adolescents, but they're predators online, trying to connect with your kids. So signs of physical deterioration, we see kids who aren't showering or don't smell good, or their hair isn't well kept, or um, there are dramatic changes in behavior. Teenagers can be very dramatic anyways, but if you some days they're laughing and crying, or sometimes they love you, sometimes they can't stand you. But when you really see dramatic changes or increasing time spent alone in their room, they don't want to participate in family activities or community activities. If they don't their friends aren't coming around, or if they're bringing around new friends, could be all a sign that something may be going on. And then the overuse of mouthwash and air fresheners, perfume. As we all know, marijuana has a distinctive smell. And so kids will try to hide that smell with other things. So those are all potential signs that something may be going on. Unfortunately, there's clothing and items out there that can hide anything. You can go online, you can go to stores in the mall that are infamous for selling flip flops, makeup, phone cases, stash caps, stuff in your shoes, belt buckles. All that stuff can hide substances. They market it as keeping your valuables safe. I'm like, as a teenager, what valuables do you have to keep safe? So just thinking about those, looking at clothing and devices where they could hide deodorant. I mean, anything can be used as a hidey hole. I mean, like I said, you can get any of this stuff online. Even Amazon sells it. It delivers it right to your door, unfortunately. But these are just all methods that teenagers use to conceal their drugs. And then, like I said, social media is huge. Texting, online. These are all symbols that can indicate substance use. Those are some of the emojis that teens will use to communicate with their friends about certain drugs. So, like I said, just having those conversations with our kids, monitoring social media. I always say, taking phones and devices that have internet connection away at night. Nothing good. I said nothing good ever happens at around 12 o'clock at night with an adolescent in a phone in the room by themselves. So all this stuff or just ideas that we could do as parents um, to help um, our kids navigate some of these situations with their friends. I mean, how to help connect with a trusted adult. I mean, sometimes kids don't want to talk to their parents because they feel embarrassed and ashamed. But if they can't talk to us, maybe there's a trusted aunt, uncle, pastor, school counselor, somebody in the family that a child can talk to if they're struggling with something. um, Having short, meaningful conversations around substance use. I always say peer influence is pretty impactful, but parental influence is even more impactful. Having a PowerPoint like this probably wouldn't be beneficial for teenagers. Their eyes would probably roll back in their head and be like, "Oh, I don't want to listen to this." But just having 10-15 minute conversations about what's going on, how are you feeling, have you seen or heard about any of this stuff, do you know any of your friends who are using stuff like that, and just talking about the health concerns with some of these issues. Have your kids practice refusal skills. Sometimes peer pressure is huge, right? We're at a party. I was teaching this class one time, and there was it was about 15 to 17-year-olds. And I said to them, by a show of hands, I said, if I came up to you and said, I have the best drug in my pocket right now, it's going to make you feel the best you've ever felt before, and it's not harmful. This is what they say. I said, how many of you would try that for the very first time? And 90% of those kids raised their hand and said yes, they would try that because their friend was offering it to them. So I have these conversations with my own child. I said, practice refusal skills. Sometimes no doesn't, just saying no doesn't work. Suggest an alternative activity, or if reverse the pressure. If we're friends, you won't pressure me to do this. Find humor in it. Like my mom would kill me literally if I tried this stuff. I always say, use me as an excuse to say no. I mean, I don't care if your friends, think I'm cool. I'm your mom. So just practicing those kinds of skills, because sometimes it is hard to say no in the moment when everybody else is trying it and they're at a party or they're with their friends and their friends are using. I think that's really important. And then, of course, early intervention. If you think that something is really going on with your child, I always say, search the rooms. They always say, well, you can't search this room. It's my room. I'm like, well, you're under 18 and you're in my house. You're not paying mortgage or rent. Technically, this is my room. And I'm doing it out of a place of love, because I care about you and I want to make sure you're okay. So searching the rooms. You can do random drug kits at home. You can buy those anywhere from Walmart to Amazon to Dollar Tree to CVS. They all carry these little kits that test for a variety of substances if you're really concerned, because it's so much easier to address these issues before it becomes a substance addiction issue. Substance use and abuse is an early intervention. Substance addiction disorder is a treatment recovery issue. And it's so hard to recover from some of these substances. Opioids are one of the strongest, most powerful addicting substances. And once we become addicted, it's so hard to remain in recovery and to remain sober. I know so many kids who've been in, 3 or 4 recovery centers, and they unfortunately still relapse and go back to using when they get out. So having these conversations, early intervention, I think is so important, because treating the addiction side it can happen, but it takes a long time. Okay. And then just for prevention services where I work, if if you're thinking about your child, and if you're seeing behaviors that are concerning, if you don't think it's like substance use related or abuse or addiction related, we have a variety of prevention consultants who, this is all for free for prevention, that you can call one of our prevention consultants and we can have conversations about tips and tools that we could use to help with behavior issues at home. That's our prevention service number. The 768-7800 is a great resource here in mental health or intake services. They do an amazing job here at CAST for mental health and substance use. Um, and we have same day access, which means you might not get a treatment appointment that day, but you'll get an appointment for an evaluation. And an evaluation usually takes about 2 hours here with a therapist here at Chesterfield County Mental Health Support Services. And then based on those assessments, they can make a recommendation. And then, of course, our crisis number, if our child is in active crisis, or of course 911 if there's any threats of harming themselves or others. And there's always the resource of 988, which you can anybody can call or text 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they get a live person. If they're having a mental health or substance abuse crisis, they can connect with somebody from 988. I know sometimes kids don't like talking on phones and rather text. So I think texting is also a really good option. So I think that's all I have. I mean, does anybody have any questions or comments?
Okay. Once you remove your PowerPoint, then we could be able to see. Okay. Wow. That was, we should say in the country, the old folks, that's a mouthful. As far as us, we don't have, our children are grown, they're in their 40s, but we have grandchildren from
Yeah.
3 months to 25 years old. And especially next to the youngest two, they're 11 and 12 this year. And I thought about them as well as other kids. When you were talking about those package items, the Funyuns, the Doritos, and Tide, and I looked at that, I could not, from the screen and looking at that, I could not tell the difference until you said, look at the marijuana emblem.
Mm-hmm.
And generally speaking, you wouldn't pay any mind to it. That
Nope.
is so scary.
It
That's
is
scary.
scary. It is very scary. Now they have energy drinks out there with THC in it. Like it's right next to the other energy drinks. So in these convenience stores and all that kind of stuff. So, and sometimes even adults don't realize there's THC in some of these things, because it's very small and it's at the bottom, and they put it next to the energy drinks on purpose.
So are those items sold in a regular grocery store with the snacks that you have?
Yeah, usually in like the little convenience stores or the little gas stations. We've seen them in there. Yes.
Oh wow.
But are they sold in grocery stores?
Not your typical Kroger, no. Like if you go to Kroger or Food Lion, it's more like the smaller little tiny shops, like those little um, like convenient marts, like attached to gas stations and things like that. Vape shops are notorious for selling these things.
Dog,
Mhm.
that's bad. that's worse than buying shrimp plate from a convenient gas station.
Yeah, right. If
Fresh shrimp.
you don't trust your sushi from a gas station, you probably shouldn't do it either.
Mhm. Wow. That is wow.
Yeah.
And this is the
No.
law. This is the thing. This is the law. The law allows this, and wow,
Yeah.
I'm almost speechless. I knew some things, but you broke it down. All I can say, this is scary.
It's very scary.
And
This
then
conversation with parents are like, well, we didn't know. Like all this stuff was out there, and it's all over. Like I said, it's all over social media. Kids will know people, and they'll tell you which gas stations they can go to get these items. And I always tell parents, like, if you know of these gas stations or smoke shops, I said, you can always report them to the ABC, the Alcohol Beverage Control, and they'll come in and do like checks on them, and they can get fined and things like that. But they have to be reported. Yeah.
wow. And so now, wow, you cannot share snacks with anyone. I mean, I don't care if they got it in grandmama's lunch pail. Go back 100 years ago when we were in school, because you don't. I mean, we have stories where kids were eating brownies, but they were laced with marijuana or whatever thing. And that used to be back in the day, just a few years ago. But now, all those gummies, all those energy drinks, supposedly energy drinks.
Kids
Ah,
are bringing them, they're bringing them on the bus and they're passing them out to their friends. And and I always tell parents, I said, if you have that stuff at home, if you're over 21, please lock it up. If Chesterfield County is great. We have at all our public libraries, we have locking medicine bags, and drug disposal pouches. So if you have those things at home, lock them up and put them in your room and keep them away from even little kids. So because they can confuse it as candy as well. We're seeing a lot of calls to the poison control center because kids are, little kids as young as 2 are getting to some of these substances. Yeah.
yeah. Someone asked, Mary asked us, and we went over it. She said, "This is very scary. What do you look for?" Mary, that marijuana symbol. Just
Mhm.
Leaf,
Google, look up
leaf.
leaf. Yeah, the leaf. And it's making me more aware now. Uh, I'm looking, especially the two youngest, next to the youngest grandboys. Um, we'll talk to our daughter about that more and more. She knows some of those things, but this information is
She's
so
yeah, she's
powerful because
watching. She's
oh, she's
she's
watching. I
watching.
didn't see her. Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's
Oh, did I?
on her. Mhm.
Okay, I don't see it. But good, good, because I thought about her. This information, wow. I, I keep saying this is
And
scary.
I know
and what
it's
was it?
unfortunate. I know it is scary, and you don't want to scare people, but you want them, but also be aware of it when it's out there. I mean, because it is prevalent, and like I said, we've seen kids overdose. Fairly recently on some of the stuff, especially the fake pills that are out there that they're getting from their friends, and like kids are bringing this stuff on the bus. Some bus drivers, I don't know if you heard of Narcan. It's one in naloxone. It's the only thing that can reverse an overdose. And I think some bus drivers are even carry some of that stuff on the bus
Mhm.
because of the stuff that's being passed around on the bus. And I think nurses now in the schools can carry Narcan in their kit in the health centers too, because you just don't know.
Did you say that the potency of the cannabis? I was trying to get that part. One of those marijuana or cannabis, something was 5 times more potent than it was in the earlier years.
Yeah, it's
The one that is legalized.
Yep. Some of it is even the average potency is about 15%, and some of it's 20 to 30% THC because of how they're growing it. And a lot of these dispensaries, they're genetically modifying these plants to make the THC content really, really high. So the high is even different than it was back in the 60s. I always joke, it's like when you smoke marijuana in the 60s, you're pretty much smoking grass because that's pretty much what it was, with 1 to 3%. But now some of the stuff, like I said, is can be as high as 80% depending on the strain and type of plant that a person's using.
Mm,
Well, the thing
that
that hit me also,
that's
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Were you
no, I'm
saying something?
just in awe. I'm in amazement.
And the other one, because you're constantly seeing people. Well, let me say this first. I don't know how someone can digest smoke that marijuana because it smells worse than a skunk
It
almost.
does.
And you walk around, and literally the other day, I was going for a walk, or you could be going to your vehicle. You could be riding along, and you literally, I had to hold my breath. Can't hold it so
Mhm.
long. But the person is nowhere around. They just happen to come through, walk through, drive through. Then when you go to recreation activities, you got to constantly move around because we
Yeah.
were going to our grandboys' game sometime, and man, I mean the profanity of the parents, number one,
Oh
and
yeah.
then the smell. It's like you cannot even hardly go to enjoy a recreation activity. So you're saying it's saying you cannot have that, or you cannot have it in your car. You can't smoke it. You can't
Yeah, you
smoke.
can't smoke and drive, or you're not really smoking it in public right now either. It's still illegal. And so, like you said, and every time I go to a park or whatever, I smell, people were gathering and they're smoking, marijuana in parks. And
Yeah.
that's still technically illegal. You could, technically call the non-emergency number, and if you wanted to, and the police could come and break it up. But people, swear. Kids will say, "Why drive better high on marijuana?" I'm like, I don't think so. I say you didn't learn to drive high. That's like, so anything that impairs your ability, it's going to affect your ability to drive, just like with alcohol. And they have all these laws around alcohol and stuff, and they're just now getting around to it with the marijuana piece, because it's been, it's legalized now for those over 21. So they have to put a lot of parameters around it as well.
Well, look, it's sad to say, and don't anyone take this literally. You'll probably be safe for smoking a cigarette and drinking liquor now.
At least you know.
That's that's
Yes.
really sad.
Yep,
Mm.
exactly. Like I said, the stuff that they sell, the vape shops and the cartridges, you don't really know what's in it or how potent it is, because there's no labels on it. It's not many, like the alcohol and stuff is all, it has to list all the ingredients and stuff, and it comes from a centralized location. They have to, list all that stuff on there. Anything with this stuff, they don't have to list any of that stuff, so you don't really know what's in it.
Wow.
Oh my goodness! So like they were showing one of the brands, I don't remember brand names of these vape. One is equal to two. One is equal to one pack of cigarettes. Another one to two packs of cigarettes, and the highest one of those equal to three packs of cigarettes. Do you know how? Do we know how much nicotine is in three packs? So if you smoke one of those number three ones, you mean you are really smoking three packs of cigarettes? We got 20 packs, I believe, and
Yeah,
20
poisoning.
cigarettes in a pack.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why the nicotine poisoning is, we're seeing an increase. And nicotine, like the liquid, can actually be absorbed through your skin. So we're seeing little children getting a hold of that stuff, not knowing what it is, and the cartridges are breaking open and it's getting absorbed through their skin. And we've seen poison control saying that they're being contacted by parents, or they're coming into the emergency room where their kids are unresponsive because they have nicotine toxicity because of the liquid inside the cartridges.
Mm. And then
Yeah, so.
the other amazing part you said was about how the e-cigarettes is absorbed in the lung tissue.
Mhm. It's
The
like a very
the
fine
waters.
vapor, yeah, that gets into your lung tissue. That's what causes, like, the lung damage, yeah.
Because liquid's heavier than the vapor. So in other words, the smoke will get in. It's bad, but you take that stuff. It's liquid. It's water based. It will stick to you. Like if you go through, I'm putting it this way. I'm thinking you walk through some light smoke. It's gonna be on you, but it'll
Mhm.
go away kind of quick. But if you get showered down with that stuff, of course, it goes inside and goes through. And as
Mhm.
parents, as guardians, as professionals, as a community,
Mm,
we
mm,
have to
mm.
really be vigilant. But how can
Yeah.
we be so vigilant when the adults are doing the same thing and they're doing it in the home,
Yep.
vaping in the home, foul language in the home, the cannabis, the marijuana. Um, I'm gonna say this. It's funny. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, would probably be about 125 years old now, I think, plus. And I remember in the 70s, grandmama would say, they be drinking that marijuana. We're from North Carolina. And it didn't really hit until the mid 70s, and it wasn't as bad. But they remind me, yeah, they're drinking that marijuana now. They're smoking
Yep.
it, drinking it, absorbing it. So
Mm.
grandmama
Wow.
prophesied, predicted that.
Mm.
Wow. Allison,
This is
I
good,
know.
good information.
this,
Thank you. I know. They call me the drug lady because I have so much information on drugs, and sometimes it's a good or a bad thing. I don't know, but like I said, it makes me more aware. And like I said, and my daughter is like, "Ugh, mom, I know." She like rolls her eyes every time I bring up a conversation. Now she's about
Keep
substances.
telling me.
Yep, keep on talking to
Yeah.
her every chance I get. Little bits here and
Yeah.
there, so it
yeah,
sticks here.
Yeah. I wish,
and
I
brother,
hope that there are a lot of more people that will go back and listen at this tonight. I see we don't have as many callers on the line tonight, but I hope that some, parents especially will go back and listen to this because in the time that we're in, it is very critical, a very critical time, especially for our youth, especially when they want to feel a part of and they're accepting so much stuff and people do things to play pranks and to set them up, and this could mess somebody's life up for throughout their life. And so it's just really sad. And the information share, I mean, we all really need to be yes, educated on what's happening, what's going on in the world, and stay on top of our children and our grandchildren as related to this, because it's much needed. It's much needed.
yeah. Well,
Thank you.
how do they say it? Knowledge is power,
Yep.
and
Mhm.
of course we haven't even scratched the surface. But the sad thing about all of this,
Exactly.
the young children, as you were stating, how that little child can get up to their e-cigarette and absorb to the skin. Because when he first started out, and I'm sure it's still that way now, how they advertise that e-cigarette is harmless, is
Hmm.
better than smoking. I'm not a scientist. Both of them are bad. And like I said before, man, it's safer than smoking a cigarette now. I mean, it's all not safer, but
Yeah.
almost safer because think about how children gotta deal with this. And that's why also you look at all this, the mental health crisis
Yep.
Mhm.
is escalated.
So she asked, "What is the e-cigarette?" I was going to answer her question to say it's when they vape. Is that the same as
Yeah, it's
e-cigarettes?
a vape. Yes. Yep. They're vaping.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she say, "Why do they smoke them? Is it to get high, or I'd heard you say though one of they think that it's supposed to have less nicotine effect. I guess I'll let you
Yeah.
answer that.
No, nicotine is a drug, so it's a feel good substance, just like people who smoke cigarettes. So once they get, and it's very very addicting. Nicotine is one of the most addicting substances out there. Sometimes kids will get addicted the first or second time they even use nicotine, because their brains aren't, like I said, the whole developing brain thing. So once they start, it's really hard to stop, because they get the cravings and withdrawal and all that kind of stuff. So. Um, and companies know this, and that's why they market it to kids.
So this
They
doesn't
changed it to
help
21.
them.
Before, when they first came out, there was no age limit, and they would put up these vape shops right across from middle schools, and these kids would
Mm.
go, to these shops, after school, and pick up these vapes, and then they knew that once they got hooked on them, they'd be hard to stop smoking.
So actually, her question is, does this help them to stop smoking regular cigarettes, increasing the nicotine and addicting them even more for the
Yeah,
smoking, Miss Mary, as I see your question, because Mary in here. So yeah, it's a vape pipe that they use to either because they use those two for cigarette purposes and they use them for getting high too, right? The
yeah,
vapes.
they can marijuana or any other liquid, any other drug can be formed in the liquid and put in those cartridges. And so they'll
Mhm.
get them online. Some of these smoke or vape shops, they'll have THC and other compounds in them. So they're using it to get high too. Hmm.
Mm. Whew.
I know.
The times
I
we're
told the
in.
kids, it's like if you would use your powers for good, you'd probably solve world peace. But they're always one step ahead in figuring out how to beat the system.
Wow. Yes.
We've got a
Okay.
work to do as parents, guardians, leaders, church, business, agencies like yours. There's a whole lot of work to do because if we can't have the attitude, that's them, because many of these are our leaders now, but the leaders of tomorrow. So what in the world are we? Oh my goodness, what in the world we're going to do in that situation? So by the power of the Lord given us, and we just got to educate, and we got to be good examples. I want
Mhm.
everyone to hear this. We've got to be good examples because children, we know, and people, but children's not going to really be attracted to what you say. They're more attracted to what you say by your actions.
Exactly.
How many children are suffering the abuse in the home? Is not always physical abuse. This is abuse of smoking this stuff in the home. This is abuse, smoking the marijuana, the vapes, the of course the alcohol and all these things. That's abuse because then I mean it's like a loaded gun. The child grab their gun and of course it goes off the real gun where the child can grab these guns, these devices, and it's a slow death. Allison, thank you so much. Of course, people are on tonight, but a lot of time, people will go on later and they'll comment because I go back and look at it. This has been so educational at the same time, so scary.
I know, and it's so sad too. I know it is. It's a serious topic. I know a lot of people don't. It makes them feel uncomfortable to hear it because I think they think we're judging them as adults. But what's going on in their home, which is not the case. We're just like I said, trying to just protect our youth.
We're gonna
That's right.
have to.
That's right.
Well,
That's right.
we thank everyone for being on and those who will eventually review this at a later date. Allison, we thank you so much. I mean,
Yes.
this is one of the presentation. It's not, how can I say it? It didn't shake the house like a storm came in. It was so powerful and even, but yet when you think back over, then it shakes you. Like I got to, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's because it start making you think, and it's it causes us to really think and what can we do? Because I automatically, like I said, as well as other, but I started thinking about our young two of the youngest grandchildren, and because they're right at that age of pre-teenage years. But as we know, 10 and 12 years old are packing weapons. They are doing all of these things. And we've really got to, as far as to live that life before them so they can see a difference. Parents, I encourage you, guardians and people in general, it is our obligation and our duty that we live this life that will be an impression on these children positively. We got
Amen.
enough negatively. Speaking, Addison, thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming on. It was worth the little challenges we had to get
Yes.
this straightened out.
Ugh,
It was
I'm glad it
worth
worked
it.
out.
Thank you. And as I always say to people and to you and to people, if you would like to be on our platform, because of January, because of the holidays, we had to switch everything to the second and the fourth Thursdays. But normally everything is on the first Thursday. That's the leadership. The third Thursday is the mental health. Some speakers can speak on both of the platforms at different times. We have enough space up here if you want to have yourself and others come on to do a like a platform together. We have enough space up here to have them on that. But please like and share, subscribe to this platform and any other platform. So again, thank you all very much. And Allison, this again has been so great, and we thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So
Thank you for having me.
yes, you were Pastor Jay. You got any comments before we close out?
No, I just wanted to thank her as well as what you said, to thank her for being with us on tonight, for sharing this information. It, as I was saying in my message on it yesterday, she was going to be talking adolescents to watch out for. But I said, we got some old adolescents that need to watch out for the drugs too, because we got a lot of adults who are also being tricked and duped on these drugs because they're wanting to feel good. For a lot of the seniors, because they got health issues, and is they're reaching for something that they've been told that can help them. And so they're going to the cannabis, to the marijuana, to the whatevers to get relief. That's scary as well, because our youth, our seniors are being subjugated to this as well. So it's the whole thing is kind of spooky, but by the help of God, we'll get through it. And we're educating. We got to keep educating and keep getting this word out. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
thank you, everyone in the audience. Thank you very much. Please contact us. I just want to say this as we're closing. I thank God for allowing me to be up here with you all. Had a little scary situation early part of this week, and I thank God that I'm here. And when I told Allison about I suffered a mini stroke where I was in the hospital, I was call her, and she said, "Can we postpone it and put a post to another time?" I said, "No, no, no, no. I'm getting out of this hospital, and we can have this." And I'm so glad, and thank God for all your prayers, everyone, your well wishes, and that's how important these ministries, these platforms is to us, because despite the situation and challenges, we want to do this. So I just want to say that. Let us pray. Father God, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for blessing us. Thank you for Allison on tonight. Thank you for the audience. Thank you for those who will come on later and view this, that it may be a blessing to your name, and it will be a blessing to all of us. In your name we pray. Amen. Remember, enjoy every moment of every day to the fullest intentionally. This is Gooley
And Janice,
and
Allison.
have a good night. Thank
have a
you.
good night, everyone. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Good night.
Yes, thank you, Alice. Good night.